It is my absolute pleasure to be joined today by author Nathan Pfleger. He is the author of the newly released book, Morty Martin and Dancing Francis. And so, Nathan, tell us about this book.
Sure. Let's see. I'm holding a copy of the book here so you can kind of see what it looks like for your viewers. Um,
Wonderful.
it's available at Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and a number of other outlets. The story is about this fellow named Morty Martin. Morty's a clever guy, but he's not academically inclined. He's good at academics, but does not think it's worth pursuing for its own sake. He's more at home in the lab with cameras, soldering irons, measuring equipments than in classrooms with equations and diagrams. He wants to feel the satisfaction of building something and making it work. He wants to touch the answer to a problem rather than write it on a blackboard and explain it to someone else. After he finished his master's degree, he had had enough of the classroom. His advisor offered him a job in experimental physics where he would help faculty and graduate students with their experiments and measurements. He was quite at home in the lab and prospered there. His specialty was capturing exotic particles in vacuum bottles, positrons, electrons, some subatomic particles. Um, and his specialty, the vacuum bottles were of his own design. He actually made them in his own kiln. The bottles had a number of sensors and stimulus devices embedded within them. The researcher he supported could study the particle as long as it was contained and active. This was not usually very long. In his job, he occasionally was offered special assignments. They got him away from the campus for a while. He was offered an assignment to CERN, which is the European nuclear facility, helping a PhD student with her research when he discovered an unusual electron. He had captured it in his magnetic bottle F. He labeled his bottles A through Z just for bookkeeping. Electrons are common. They have been studied and documented. No one was interested in Marty's little discovery. Um, the advantage in electrons is that they do not decay and they could be held for quite a while. This one would, on occasion, change state very rapidly, so rapidly that it was hard to follow the transitions from reading the sensors. He hooked his sensors up to a speaker and they played what sounded like a little tune. Fellow researchers told him it might be part of an entangled pair and simply reacting to whatever was happening to the other half of the pair. He decided to hold on to the electron for a while. Maybe he could find the other half of the entangled pair. He called his electron Francis. It was, after all, in his bottle marked F. The book follows a heavily disciplined but sometimes serendipitous discovery process that Morty undertook to understand Francis and the subsequent world that Francis opened before Morty's eyes. The truth was stranger than any of his colleagues had predicted. It had a profound effect on Morty and all of those around him, especially the love of his life, Clarice. At points in this story are about human relations and more about human relations and trust than they are about science fiction.
That's incredible. So, what was the inspiration for this book?
So I've always loved science fiction, not the heavy fantasy kind, but the kind that was over the edge from the current reality. There's no ghost or wizards in Morty's stories. My previous employment, working in scientific research areas for defense and industry, had led me to writing all of the time. In that life, I authored 4 technical books and hundreds of technical papers. Stories like Morty's were swirling in my head, and they were just waiting to get out. After retiring, I began to give them life. Sometimes the words flowed at an incredible pace. At other times, they needed to pause and they would ruminate within my mind for a while. Sometimes I would have to go back and rewrite what I had already written. The book finally came together after several iterations. I adopted the pen name Nathan Pfleger so as not to confuse the fiction with my scientific writings. Morty Martin was the first such effort to be published. There will be several more if I can get them through the publishing process.
Wonderful. It's exciting that we're going to see more books coming. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with us today about you, your book, or the message behind it?
Well, Abby, I hope the reader enjoys the books as much as I enjoyed writing it. Writing fiction is a mind expanding process and quite different from technical writing. Often the characters do things that were not in the outlines or in the story points. Storylines often have to be modified to accommodate the characters who have grown in the development of the story. Re examining reality from a new perspective is always exciting and enriching. If I can provide some of these perspectives to the reader, then my job has been worthwhile. Of course, if the reader is entertained, then that will be my reward.
That's incredible. Well, I'm excited to see about how this book does and to see the future books coming from you. We want to make sure and remind everyone again that this book is available online everywhere books are sold. It's available on Amazon, online at Barnes and Noble, Reader House, Apple Books, all of those places, and we recommend everyone pick up this fun book today. And Nathan, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Well, thank you for having me.